Welcome back YouTubers to my channel of an everyday life of an Aspie. For those of you who are new, I'm Aspie. I'm all about creating mental health and awareness and sharing my life stories and taking you all on a journey with Aspie syndrome and mental health, along with fun and games, along with tips and advice and many others in between. So if you're into any of these, feel free to smash the subscribe button on the bottom right hand corner and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any future updates. So today is going to be a quick, hopefully video introduction to PJ Sales, which I would like to thank you for participating today, as well as just raising her hand up to share with us. So PJ Sales basically is going to talk to us about basically autism, the spectrum disorder, on her viewpoint on what life is like with these set questions that you've seen many times before. And as I said before, with these collabs, this is one of the many shared right now to you all. So of the projects that I want to raise awareness and understanding towards our different everyday conditions that we have, regardless if it's mental health, general health, physical health, chronic illnesses and the like. So you'll find PJ Sales obviously listed in the description below if you want to visit her channel. Show your support by just popping over and say that Aspie has sent you and that she will be glad to see maybe more support as well from me to her as well. So I'm saying this basically, once again, thank you PJ for coming on, and hopefully you enjoyed this. So let's begin with the questions. The very first question that we want to start out with you today is, what is the name of the condition that you're diagnosed with? What is it known as? Is there any like common name for it, or just another type diagnosis term that we're not aware of?
Hello, my name is PJ Sales and I am doing an interview for the channel Aspie Answers today. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm honored to be answering these questions. So let's just dive right in. Number one, what's the name of your condition you are diagnosed with and what is it known as? I've been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, formerly known as Asperger's. Now it's known as ASD, at least in the American way of diagnosing things.
Number two, what are the signs and symptoms of the condition that you're explaining today?
Question number two, what are the signs and symptoms? It's very mixed from what I understand. I'm still very new to this. I actually just got diagnosed this year and I'm 26. Usually you're supposed to get diagnosed pretty early on in your life. That obviously didn't happen. Signs and symptoms for me, at least, even looking back in my life earlier, a lot of things that I couldn't make sense of before make sense now in the light of ASD. Just a lot of like noise sensitivity. When I was like a kid, I would riding the bus or be in school or something, and everything just seemed too loud for me and it caused me a lot of anxiety, and I would literally like cover my ears and I just like scream because it just was the world that everyone else just seemed to be like normal in, just seemed too much for me. Another thing was having difficulty in social situations. I feel like I've gotten a little bit better as I've gotten older in that, but in school, and even really now I feel like it's more of an introversion, but in school I didn't really know how to make friends or approach people or talk to people or really converse. I watched a lot of TV and I was obsessed with like anime. And so I thought, what I was seeing on TV and how people were acting on TV and these cartoons and animations and things that I was seeing on TV were how you were supposed to make friends. So I'd do that in real life and it didn't work out like that. So there was that, and then some other things. I actually have this written down somewhere. Maybe that'll help me. Another thing is not really being able to communicate my thoughts very well. So having things written down has helped me. Difficulty understanding / interpreting others' thoughts and feelings. That's been a big one for me my whole life, which is also weird because I have a sensitivity towards people's feelings, but I never really know how to react to people's feelings. Like I can tell when you're not feeling well, like if you're depressed or if you're anxious or angry, I can tell. I just don't know how to react to it, and I don't know how to respond or converse with you in those times. I have a difficulty seeing things from other people's perspective, for sure. That, and then another thing that isn't talked about very often in the ASD diagnosis is difficulty regulating your emotions. I think that is comorbid with some of my other conditions, but that's definitely something that's, you know, how it's been for me my whole life. I feel a lot of emotions and I feel them very strongly, and it's hard to cope with them and regulate them and make them just steady. Thing is stimming, which whenever I get excited or anxious, I sway back and forth like this, or I do something with my hands like this. That's another thing I've done for a very long time. Other small things would be grasping like the bigger picture. I'm very like details. I see details very clearly and can handle details more than the big picture of things. Plans, like short-term spontaneous plans, can be fun sometimes if I feel like I have some sort of control. But if I make a long-term plan and if it does not go exactly the way that I planned it to, it is very, very difficult for me. Say if I get my work schedule and I write down that week, that entire work schedule, and then I make plans within those parameters of, say, 9 to 5 on Tuesday. I'm gonna schedule some things before 9 and after 5. They change that schedule after I've already made all those plans. It's really, really hard for me to just like bounce back from that. Another thing I've always done, which I didn't know was an ASD thing, is I have a hard time communicating, so I use a lot of gestures instead of words. I'll point to things, or if I want to get someone's attention, I don't actually say anything. I just kind of go over next to them and I stand there and I don't really say anything. And it's hard for me to communicate, so I just kind of use gestures or movements of my hands or like looking over in one direction and pointing instead of being like, oh, hey, hand that to me. I just go. So apparently that's an ASD thing, which makes sense to me now as an adult. I've always done that. I still do that. Another thing is sensitivity to texture. I really, really hate tags on shirts, so I have removed most of them just because I really, really hate that feeling. It's like, it's borderline painful. And then just anxiety, which I think a lot of people have anyway.
Number 3 is, what are the causes and or triggers for this condition?
3, what are the causes and or triggers for the condition? I don't really know what causes autism. I don't think it's vaccines for sure. I definitely don't think that. I've heard it's hereditary, like in your genes, which no one in my family has been diagnosed with ASD. But after I got diagnosed and after I started learning more about it, when I look at my family, when I look at like, say, my grandmother, and even my mom. I don't know my dad's side of the family, so who knows? Yeah, when I just look at some people in my family, I feel like they're on the spectrum. So I don't really know how autism is what causes it. But yeah, that's my opinion. I think it might be hereditary, but I don't really know.
How and when were you diagnosed?
How and when were you diagnosed? I was diagnosed technically last year, around the holiday season, a little bit before the holiday season. I was working at Starbucks and I had what they call an autistic meltdown. Months later, after that meltdown, there was some sort of investigation filed against me. And I ended up getting fired, but it was fine because I also got hired at a different job the same day. But the day after that, I had this ginormous anxiety / panic attack, and I just checked myself into the hospital. They started asking me some questions, and I just started answering them. They asked me questions about me, about the situation at Starbucks, about my childhood, about my reaction to certain things, and they're like, you know, it sounds like you have Asperger's, which had crossed my mind before, but I had never gotten a professional opinion about it because it's really, really hard to get an official diagnosis as an adult. So after that, I just went into therapy. I still don't have like an on-paper diagnosis, but I've gotten a, yes, you definitely have ASD from a lot of different therapists and medical professionals. It's just that you need a autism specialist, at least where I'm from, to get an on-paper diagnosis, which I have not gotten yet, which kind of sucks. What can you do?
Number 5, what are the struggles you have with this condition on the daily and how do you overcome these struggles?
Honestly, the biggest one for me is sensory overload. That happens a lot to me at work. I work at Best Buy, which is a technology store, so there's always a bunch of noise and a bunch of people in there. I'll try and have a conversation with someone, like a customer will come up to me and be like, hey, so-and-so, or they'll ask me a question, and I can't seem to get words out when I'm experiencing sensory overload, so I'll be looking at them, and sometimes words just don't come out of me, or I have to really, really, really focus on what they're saying and what I need to say to respond to what they're saying, and try my hardest to filter out what, like, all the other noises. Things that help me or coping, noise canceling headphones really help me, but I mean, as far as like in the working and kind of situations where you can't really use them, just taking a minute to take a step back if I ever do get overwhelmed, that definitely is a way to help me overcome those moments.
Has your condition ever stopped you from doing anything you loved? If so, what are they?
As far as ASD goes, no, not really. I think ASD has actually helped me. Out of all of the conditions I have, I think ASD has helped me pursue the things I want, because I can hyper focus onto things I like playing the piano, making music, art, video games, anything creative or outdoorsy. I think ASD has actually helped me the most. Doing things I love. I don't think it's ever really stopped me. The anxiety portion that comes with it maybe has probably stopped me a few times, but anxiety is something that's kind of comorbid with a lot of different things.
How do you manage or treat your conditions on a daily?
How do you manage your conditions on a day-to-day basis? Just one day at a time. I know that's kind of a cop-out of an answer, but this is still very new to me, and I'm still trying to find ways to. How do you manage your conditions on a day-to-day basis? Yeah, I'm still learning on how to do that, but it is really just taking it one day at a time.
What do you do to treat your condition?
What do you do to treat the condition? I go to therapy, and also just trying to do things that I love to do, like music, going outside, that kind of stuff.
What advice would you like to give to the audience about the condition you're sharing with us today?
What advice would you give to the audience about the condition? If you ever meet someone or you have someone in your life that you care about who's on the spectrum, if they are verbal, try and ask them questions. Don't just assume things about the condition, because the thing about ASD is it's autism spectrum disorder, so it's a big giant spectrum of things that people can struggle with. What I struggle with, another autistic person might not struggle with, and vice versa. So I think if you do have someone in your life who is on the spectrum and they are verbal, ask them what their needs are and how you can help them.
What are the myths and misconceptions that you hear about of this condition on the daily, and what do you want to try and do to abolish these myths and misconceptions?
What myths/misconceptions do you hear about? Biggest thing that threw me off and even made me question if I was on the spectrum was this idea that people with ASD can't feel empathy, which is a huge lie. Because I am a very empathetic person. Like, I feel too much empathy. The thing is, though, is it's very, very hard for me to express that empathy. Sometimes I just don't know how to communicate that empathy to people. And I think a lot of people on the spectrum are like that. We do, for the most part, a lot of us do feel empathy. It's just expressing that empathy to others is what's really, really difficult.
Are there any benefits of this condition? If so, what are they?
Are there any benefits to the condition? If so, what are they? I definitely think so. I think I really, really like I like the special interest portion of it, because once you find something that you like, you do not casually like it. You really dive deep into it, and that's where a lot of people on the spectrum can become like experts at things, because they fall in love with something so much, and then they eventually, it's just research after research after research on whatever topic it is that they love. Another thing is just I have really good attention to detail, and that is I guess a symptom of ASD. Two other things that some people see as not a strength, probably people who aren't on the spectrum see honesty can be hurtful. But the thing is, like, I'm gonna be honest with you. And some people, I think it has gotten me into trouble a couple times, but I don't see the point of lying. Like if someone's like, hey, does this dress make me look fat or something? I'm like, yes, but it's not to like hurt. Say yes, but it's not to hurt like your feelings. You asked me, so it's, of course I'm gonna say the truth, because like there's no reason to get upset over the truth, I guess, when it's meant to be helpful, I guess. I'm not doing a good job of explaining this. Honesty. I think it's a strength. Some people don't think it's a strength. Another thing, I'm very, very loyal. There's really only been one person in my life who I've ever not stuck around with, and that's just because it wasn't a good match. But I am very, very loyal to the people that I care about, to a fault sometimes. But loyalty is definitely a strength, and it's something that's pretty common, I've found, with people on the spectrum. They're very, very loyal. Another thing is non-judgmental listening, which I did a lot of research on. I became obsessed with ASD once I found out that I had it, and I just researched the crap out of it. And a thing that came up a lot was just non-judgmentalness is something that's common in people on the spectrum, and I think that's a strength.
What are your pet peeves you hear about with your condition?
What are your pet peeves you hear about? Definitely the no empathy thing, and you don't look autistic, which is so. I understand, and I understand because I'm 26 and I'm just now learning about this stuff. But autism doesn't have a look. It's all a neurological. It's a neurological condition, so it's all in here. So it doesn't really have a look to it.
Can you describe what it's like living with your condition on a day-to-day basis?
Not really. It's hard a lot of the times. It's really, really hard. But I know that there are benefits to it, which I've stated. But it is very hard to live with this. I've lost a lot of friends just because I'm not very good at communicating myself or perceiving others. So I think that is a thing. Maintaining friendship while you're on the spectrum is very, very difficult. So that is something that really, really sucks. But there are a lot of strengths. Creativity is another thing that people on the spectrum have, and obsessing over something so much that you become an expert in it is also a very, very positive thing, in my opinion.
And 14, last but not least, is what advice would you give to someone who's in a relationship that has a person that they care about with the condition?
What advice would you give someone who is in a relationship with someone who has this condition? Same as I said before, like, ask them what it is they need and be there for them. So yeah, my name is PJ Sells. This has been an interview, I guess, with Aspie Answers, and thank you for watching.
Once again, thank you PJ for coming onto the channel. Hopefully you've enjoyed this, guys. Please like, feel free to comment below. Also feel free to comment below if there were any similarities or differences that PJ and I were sharing right now, so that we can get the discussion going. You know, how does it feel with you, with your everyday struggles with this condition that is brought out if you're autistic, since it's autistic related today? And if you do struggle, you know, what do you do to overcome these everyday struggles? And what are your pet peeves is another one I want to open as the discussion for you guys. Also, I'm saying that everything else that I've shared before, like I've got a Patreon account at the moment at this point of time to help me with my funding for basically my rent, my travel costs if I do travel around the world, or just travel in general in my local area or in and around New Zealand, along with also covering the cost of my expenses once I do better myself with recording equipment. And for those of you who don't know what Patreon is just like a kind of a funding page for creators like me that advocates or maybe do music or whatever form of entertainment, so on and so forth, that they want to bring out to you guys. And what it helps with just donating through, you know, PayPal, and you can give so little or as much as you want, and it has different tiers and all that. I clearly mentioned this before in one of my videos, which I'll link in the description below as well, based on my intro to their Patreon. So another thing is also, as I said, there are a few other plans in the works right now that I'm hoping to do. I'm hoping for this, as one of them is this interview series that I'm doing with you guys. If you are brave enough to answer these questions as I've done with PJ today and many others, if you are interested, let me know in the comment section below, or just private message me through Aspie Answers on Facebook, or even through my social media, Twitter, wherever you feel safe to, you know, talk to me. Also, in the works of these projects, I'm hoping, like I said, in the near future to see with some of the ones that do bring in depth stories, such as the interview, well, not interview as such, but the ones that I've shown about Lydia, with Life with Lydia, to maybe animate it form, you know, cartoon it up a bit, just to make it a bit more engaging maybe for you guys. If you want to see that, let me know. Also, what I'm saying is I'm trying to update my website, or shall we say my WordPress site, so that hopefully it can become a website. I'm still, as I said, on the current lookout. So if any one of you are kind enough to let me know who I can, I've got a domain name, and as I said, but it's just taking a while, as we know certain things do with our everyday projects that we so desire. Another thing is, just as a heads up, basically, if you want to share your story based on what you went through, be it if it's general health, mental health, and you want to raise awareness and understanding for us all, feel free to at least either comment below, or feel free to private message me, as I said before, on my Twitter or wherever you feel safe, so that we can have a discussion about it. And in saying this also, like, as I said, I'm hoping to maybe in the near future continue my part 2 of the book that I wrote 3 years ago, of some of the topics that I may have not shared that is autistic related, versus also short stories from autistics alike. But I want to share their life story about what life is like for them. It can be short stories versus maybe some form of poetry if I chose a topic from one of the playlists in there of my videos that I've been doing so far for you that is autistic related. So in all of this, guys, I think that's all I can think of. Don't forget to follow me on my social media. So do you guys think support that's watching, do what love what you do. Until next time, Aspie signing out, and I'll see you again soon. Ciao for now.